This is Financially Fit Radio with Cory Sickles from Safe Harbor Retirement Group. When a part of your financial strategy is out of tune, your long-term goals, your retirement savings, and your legacy can all suffer. With many years of experience in the financial industry, Cory provides his clients and prospects with the information they need regarding Social Security, retirement income planning, wealth management, and much more. Listen in as we address your financial concerns and provide helpful solutions to put you on the path to achieving your retirement goals. And now, here is Financially Fit Radio with Cory Sickles.
Welcome back to another episode of Financially Fit Radio. I'm Cory Sickles with Safe Harbor Retirement Group and Wealth Advisors. If you'd like any information about what we discuss on today's show, feel free to give us a call at 614-760-0670, or you can always visit us online at safeharboroh.com. And while you're on our website, feel free to check out our radio page. You can listen to previous episodes, as well as you can subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, and Spotify. Also, feel free to check out today's show on our YouTube channel. Just type in Safe Harbor Retirement Group. You can watch today's show, and you can watch actually any show here in 2024. And again, our guide is to help you have the best retirement that you can. So feel free to give us a call, set up a complimentary, no obligation meeting with us. We're here to help you to make sure that you have the secure retirement that you want. Well, today we're going to talk about essential questions that you should probably be talking to your financial advisor about. Some of the questions we're going to talk about might be, when you're actually trying to hire an advisor. But I think the other questions we're going to ask are what are they doing for you once they become a client as well? But before we dive into that, let me introduce to you my co-host this week and every week, and that's Tony Shore. Tony, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Cory. Great to be here. I've had a busy week. It's just crazy busy with trying to help my parents and get everything done around the house, work, holidays, things like that. Just catching up. How about you? Have you been busy?
I have been busy. Obviously, it's hard to believe here, but it's for us, it's Thanksgiving week here, right?
Right.
And that means one thing for us here in Columbus, and that means it's the game week. So we're playing the team up north, looking to destroy them and end our 3-game losing streak against them.
Oh boy, I hope so. I'll be rooting for you, Cory. That's for sure.
I know your Vikings pulled another one out.
They did.
They about gave that game away to Chicago.
I know. We tried our best to give the game away. We have in the last 3 games, but hey, we're on a 4-game winning streak. So
yeah. It is hard to believe that. December's right around the corner. I do want to remind all of our, viewers and listeners out there that, we're part of the Big Ten TV toy drive. Feel free to drop toys off, or, you can drop them off at any of at 2 of our locations here in Dublin or at our Easton location. You can also, if you want to buy them online, and you can just mail them to our address too. And again, if you just go to our website at safeharboroh.com, you can see our address, drop them off. The day that we're delivering all the toys is December 12th. So we still have some time left for that as well. But it's a good opportunity for us, our clients, and, really to give back to the community. Hey, we know it's been tough for a lot of people out there. And the only thing we really want to do is be able to put a smile on a little kid's face on Christmas Day.
Yeah, I think that's great. You guys do a great job, and you collect so many toys for children who need them and families who don't have the means to get them. I think that's great. You put a smile on a lot of little kids' face this Christmas, and you guys, you bring in a lot of toys. I think that's great. And we encourage our listeners. They're always a big help by stopping by one of your offices, dropping off some toys. Cory, that's great. I know you love to give back to the community, and I think that's really neat. Now, today's topic that we're talking about, essential questions to ask your financial advisor.
I think it's a good one. I know a lot of people right now, this is a busy time of the year. November, December, January, and February for, I think, a lot of people that basically say, you know what, it's time for me to really, start thinking about retirement. which means I need to get an advisor. And we have a lot of first meetings coming up, and I know other advisors do as well. And really, I think it's kind of like, what are some of the things that you should ask the advisors as you kind of go through that process to determine, who do you want to work with and who do you trust? And
Right.
obviously, one of the first things you do want to discuss with them is, what are what are your qualifications? What kind of experience do you have? And I'll just, as we kind of go through some of these questions, Tony, I'm also going to kind of give you what our philosophy is, and I'm going to answer them just so our viewers can hear, just, or so they can actually hear what ways the Safe Harbor does business as well.
Sure.
From a qualification standpoint, we have I have a Series 65. I'm a registered investment advisor. And what comes with that, and obviously I have my insurance license, and I'm also a certified financial fiduciary as well. And that's usually one of the first questions that come up is, are you a fiduciary?
Yep.
Right? I think everyone wants to be able to work with someone that's always going to be working in their best interest. Being a registered investment advisor, we're required to be a fiduciary. And
what does that mean, Cory, to be a fiduciary?
well, that means we're always going to put the client's interest first, right? Now, obviously, there's things that I can do that's going to make me more money or our firm more money. But by being a fiduciary, that doesn't matter. Everyone's situation is different, Tony. So our job is
you can't do what's in your best interest as a fiduciary because you're held to that standard where every decision you help your client make or anything you do for your clients has to be in their best interest, not yours. And they audit you regularly to make sure that's what you're doing. You have to save all your communications, all the information on what your clients are doing and what you're doing for them, right?
Yeah, and the big part of that is obviously we got to keep email. We have all that type of stuff too. But
Sure.
But the big part of it, Tony, is one of the things they really want to look at is, what assets did they have before they came to you?
Right.
What did you actually present to them, and why did you come up with that solution? So we got to be able to document all that. So if we do get audited, we can sit there and say, this is why we did X, Y, and Z for this particular client. And every client's going to be different.
Mm-hmm.
But it's so important that you are working with someone that is a fiduciary, because the last thing you want to do is work with somebody that's actually putting you into particular investments that's going to make them the most amount of money.
Right.
That's really what it boils down to.
Yeah. How are you going to help? What's in their best interest to meet their goals? Right.
Yeah. And I do firmly believe the majority of advisors out there try to do what's always right for the client. But I think you just want to make sure that you are working with someone that is required. That's the key. They're required to be a fiduciary.
Yeah, you want a fiduciary. Ask them. That's the first big question. Are you a fiduciary, and what are your qualifications?
That's right. That's exactly right. Obviously, when we start coming, we kind of talk about the next thing is usually what someone's going to ask me is, are you a fiduciary? The next question out of them is, well, how do you get paid? Right.
Right.
So, so it's very simple for us. We do a combination of fee-based as well as commission-based. If we actually recommend annuities, life insurance, we're going to get paid a commission. If we invest money in the market, then we're going to charge you a type of fee. And one of the things that we do have to disclose, and that's in our ADV, is, do we have any potential conflicts of interest? And really, we don't. But if we did, we'd have to actually disclose that. So you need to make sure that you understand what our conflicts of interest potentially could be as well. But we try to lay all that out. We try to be transparent when it comes to fees, because you need to be able to make sure you understand how are you actually going to be charged in order to do business with Safe Harbor or any particular type of advisory firm.
Right. Yeah, I think that's good. I know you're very transparent on how you get paid, and that's why your clients love dealing with you. It's very simple, and a lot of people think, "Oh, I can't afford a financial advisor. I don't have multi-millions." No, it's actually not based on that like that, and I think that's fantastic the way you do your business and how transparent you are about it.
Yeah, and I think more than important, here's probably the most important part. Here's the way I always look at it, Tony. There's always two parts of this, and one of it might end up being that most people invest in mutual funds. I'm not saying everybody, but a lot of people invest in mutual funds, and there's a fee that's usually associated with that. And in most cases with us, you're gonna invest in particular products. There's gonna be a fee associated with that as well, but you're paying an extra fee to us as the advisor to do other things for you, to be able to provide advice, be able to meet down, to be able to provide advice not only about financial, but there might be other things that pop up as well. We'll talk about that here in a few minutes. But you're paying us a fee to be able to make sure we're doing all the right work for you, to make sure you're allocated the correct way, invested the correct way, to be able to make sure that you're on target to have the retirement that you want. So there is a cost for that, and that's really what you're paying our fee to be able to do.
Sure.
Now, are we managing the money here? No, we are not. We've had gradient investments, on our show, previous shows on this. So they manage all of our clients' portfolios. And here's the one key, and we've talked about it before, is they do active management, which means based upon market conditions, based upon the type of portfolio they're buying and selling, based upon, whatever they think is going to be in the best interest for that client as well. So, and a lot of that has, we have so many different types of diversification and strategies out there. Our job is to be able to make sure we understand the client's risk level, find the right type of portfolio, and then we have actual money managers that manage that portfolio for our client's best interest.
Right. Yeah, and that's huge. And you have, I like how you have third-party custodians handling the money, and you have the back office gradient investments actively daily looking at everything, managing everything. And the unique part of this is what our listeners might not realize is you have a direct line to the president and the senior portfolio managers at Gradient. You can pick up the phone if your client has a concern or wants to do something. You can pick up the phone and make it happen, or put them on with them so they can talk about it. And there is very few situations or financial professionals who can do that, who can reach the president of the investment firm with one phone call and get them on the line right then. So that's really good, Cory. And as an independent and fiduciary, you're able to look at all the options for your clients out there. You're not beholden to any one company, and you're able to look at all the options out there. I like that.
Yeah, and you mentioned one thing that I want to make sure our listeners understand, Tony, and that is you mentioned that we're not the custodian of the money. And all that means to you, the investor, is when you actually work with Safe Harbor, for example, right? The custodian for our assets is actually Charles Schwab. That's who we actually use, right? Which means you're going to get monthly statements from Charles Schwab. We don't have access to move any of the money around. It eliminates Ponzi schemes, any type of fraud, that type of stuff as well. And I think that's important for our listeners to understand that, because that's very important to make sure you understand who's actually generating the statements. Because that's where a lot of people can get into some issues if you don't know who the actual custodian of your actual money is.
Yeah. Yeah, and you never want to work with somebody who's directly handling your money. They need to use a major third-party custodian for security reasons, and that way you avoid any improprieties, and you're working with a legit person. You know what I mean?
Yes, exactly right.
You've seen the Bernie Madoff situations where people were giving him and his firm money directly, and they weren't going through a third-party custodian being held by them like Charles Schwab or Transamerica, these big, huge companies that do that, and that's what they do. And so you really want to be careful there. That's another thing, right? Are you a fiduciary? How do you manage the investments? Who will be managing the account? That's a great question.
Yeah, it is. I think it's very important to be able to understand that. And it's also kind of like, what type of investments are you going to actually put your money into as well, or clients' money into, right? What we do obviously is we put stocks, we use bonds. we don't use mutual funds, Tony. We use ETFs more than anything else. And we do have what we call our alternative investments, and that's our buffered product that we've talked about in the past. But the big part of all this is grading has, I'm just going to say 20 to 25 different types of portfolios, right?
Sure.
So our job is to be able to find out what our client's risk level is, and we want to be able to put a strategy in place for them, and we're going to utilize the portfolios that's going to meet our clients' needs. Now, obviously, one of the things we're trying to do is minimize the risk for the clients. We're trying to be able to maximize their returns. But at the end of the day, it's our job to work with them in order to find the right type of portfolio. It's one of the things that I really truly believe is we kind of have a little bit of double management for our clients, Tony. And what I mean by that is our job as the advisor is to find out what you're trying to accomplish. And we're going to manage those expectations. We're going to choose the right type of portfolios for you. Now you then on top of that have someone that's looking at it on a daily basis or using active management, for those portfolios. So I think it's a good win-win situation for our clients. And more importantly, it's a good win situation for Safe Harbor too.
Yeah, it is. It is a win-win situation. I like that, and understanding that is huge. So, what's another question that listeners should ask a financial professional? First of all, I think they should be working with a financial professional. We need to point that out because you need a financial advisor, a financial services professional who's going to look out for your best interest because it will help you save money in the long run. Study after study shows it does, and you can avoid costly mistakes.
Yeah, and I think something that's always important too, Tony, is how are you going to be able to grade whether or not you're doing well with your advisor by the portfolios they put you into, right? So you need to make sure that you kind of understand what those benchmarks are, right? If I put you into like our core select portfolio, our benchmark for that is the S&P 500. It's pretty black and white, right? If the S&P 500 goes up 20%, then we should be pretty close to 20% net of our fees, or we should be able to hopefully outperform that. But you want to be able to have a benchmark for any type of portfolio or investment that you're putting into. So it's an easy way for you to not only it's an easy way for you to be able to grade whether or not your advisor is doing well for you. And they should be able to share that with you that basically says this portfolio, this is the benchmark. And when we have an annual review, we're going to be able to grade ourselves and show you whether or not we're actually, matching that benchmark, whether we're above it or below it.
Yeah, that's a great one. And that's one you don't hear about, but you're right. How can you help me? Are you helping me set a benchmark so I can see how you're doing as an advisor? I think that's huge.
Yeah, and I think the next thing we kind of get into is you need to be able to set goals for yourself long term, right? Depends. Obviously, it's going to depend on where you are, right? If you're 55 years old and you want to retire at 65, the goal is to retire in 10 years. So one of the things that we have to be able to do is understand how much assets you have. What is your Social Security and pension going to be able to look like at that particular point in time? How much are you actually saving? Do you need to save more in order to be able to retire at age 65? What are your monthly expenses? How does that play into all this? Because at the end of the day, we're going to be able to start generating what your potential income is going to look like in retirement. And we're going to be able to show you whether or not you can retire at the age of 65.
Sure. So the question there is, Cory, just to clarify for our listeners, what's the question for your financial advisor who you're meeting with? How can you help me achieve these goals?
That's exactly right.
That's what I would ask you, Cory. Cory, how are you going to help me achieve these goals? And you just went through some of the ways you're gonna ask them, figure out what their needs are. Are they going to need the money to buy an RV the minute they retire? Or are they going to buy a house between now and then? How much income are they going to need in retirement? So
you have kids that are going to possibly be in college that you got to pay for, right?
Yeah.
Do you have weddings that's going to be able to come up?
3.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
You had
a lot of people
don't
realize that it's going to take money.
Yeah.
Do we need to build an emergency fund so you can pay for all those things so you don't have to take it out of your retirement account?
Sure.
The earlier that you can work with an advisor and go over these types of goals, the better situation you're going to be in, because we can develop a plan for you that's going to be able to hit all those goals, right? And obviously we want you to be diversified. We want to make sure we understand your risk tolerance. But to have a true financial plan, those are some of the things that kind of go into that. And that's really just talking about the income side of that too, Tony. We want to be able to have a tax strategy. You can meet with a CPA. We might have to put an estate plan in place for you. So do you need a will? Do you need a trust? So there's a lot of other things that kind of go with that. And obviously, when you turn 65, what do you have to do? You got to sign up for Medicare potentially. So when you work with Safe Harbor, we have all those things that you can be able to work with at our location. And I think it's good to be able to sit down with an advisor and go, tell me overall what's your holistic plan. Or are you just financial planning? Can I meet with a CPA here? Can I meet with an attorney? Do you have a Medicare specialist? Those are all things that can come into play on who you choose.
Yeah. Yeah. And those are very important areas. Don't overlook those, because you need somebody who's going to look at the big picture for your overall tax plan, not just now, that's a tax preparer, but in the future.
Right.
What are your taxes going to look like? And I really like that. How are you going to help me achieve my goals? You mentioned something in there, risk tolerance. So another question to ask is, how do you assess my risk tolerance and know how much risk I need? And, I know to do that, you look at things like people's timelines. You have a risk assessment that you give people that any of our listeners can take, right?
Yeah. If you go to our website, right on our front page, you can find out what your score is. Just click on that risk assessment right off of our website. But one of the things that we do, Tony, is you have to do a risk tolerance every year, right? Things change.
Yeah.
You're working last year, this year you're not, which means your odds are you probably got a little bit more conservative. You have to make sure your portfolio follows you as you kind of go through your life. And that's why it's so important to be able to do that. And that's a good question to ask, how often are you going to meet with your advisor, right? We meet a minimum time of once a year, but we also leave the door open to meet as many times as you want, as things happen, as things change. So I think that's very important to be able to understand too, is how often you are going to meet with your advisor, because financial questions pop up constantly. Whether you're going to buy a house, whether maybe you lose someone, whether you inherit money, kids, now you have extra money because now you aren't paying for school. So you always want to be able to be on the lookout on ways to be able to save for retirement. The only way to be able to do that is if you meet with your advisor more often.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I like that. And I really think that review process, that's a good one. How often will you review and adjust my financial plan? That's a great question. And I know you meet with your clients at least once a year and you're available to them all the time.
Yep.
I've seen you interact with your clients and at client events, and you take good care of your clients. You and your staff are available for them. And again, you have the big picture for them in mind and have specialists that you work with in your office. That's really important to work with somebody who's independent, who's not beholden to one big box company. So, when all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So you go to these big box companies and they're going to try to shoehorn you into their personal products or portfolios, and you want somebody who's looking at the big picture saying, hey, we have a lot of options out there, right?
Yeah. You definitely want to work with an advisor that has that holistic approach, whether it's income planning, whether it's building your wealth, whether it's saving money on taxes long term, or making sure your estate's in plan, or healthcare. You want to be able to work with someone that can handle all those type of issues for you.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, Tony, it's all about trust, right? You have to be
Right.
able to trust your advisor. So if you don't feel the trust, then you probably need to be looking for someone else. Obviously, you can always schedule a complimentary meeting with us.
Sure.
We're here to help and guide you, do whatever you need to do to have the retirement that you want. So feel free to give us a call at 614-760-0670. Again, you can always visit our website at safeharboroh.com. And just remember, there's no financial obligation. Every meeting's complimentary, and we're just here to help and guide you to make sure you have the secure retirement that you need.
Yeah, I think that's great, Cory. Great show today. Listeners and viewers, thanks for tuning in. That does it for today's episode of Financially Fit Radio with our host, Cory Sickles. Thank you for listening to Financially Fit Radio. Don't pay too much for taxes or retire without a sound income plan. For more information, contact Cory Sickles at Safe Harbor Retirement Group. Call 614-760-0670 or visit their website at financiallyfitoh.com.
All matters discussed during the show are for informational purposes only. Each individual situation may vary, and the opinions expressed here may not apply to everyone. Materials presented are believed to be from reliable sources, and no representations can be made as to its accuracy. All ideas and information should be discussed in detail with one of our qualified representatives prior to implementation. We are not affiliated with or endorsed by the Social Security Administration, the Federal Medicare Program, or any other government agency. Calling this number will direct you to a licensed sales agent.